INFJs are wired for deep thought, rich emotional intelligence, and intuitive foresight. These traits, when combined, form the perfect ingredients for leadership. And yet, more often than not, INFJs do not rise to visible positions of leadership. They often avoid titles, shun the spotlight, and stay far from center stage. This creates a curious paradox. INFJs are born leaders who often choose not to lead. But to understand this paradox, we must first understand how INFJs lead, and why their leadership style is so different from what the world expects. INFJs lead not through dominance, but through influence. They don't lead by demanding attention. They lead by holding space. They are often the person in the room who says the least, but listens the most. And when they finally do speak, their words carry weight. This quiet authority, this ability to see and sense beyond the obvious, makes people trust them without fully understanding why. There's something magnetic about an INFJ's presence. They carry a calm strength that doesn't shout for power, but draws people in naturally. It's not about performance. It's about presence. Their intuition is one of their most powerful tools. INFJs often see several steps ahead of everyone else. They can sense shifts in people's motivations, read emotional undercurrents, and anticipate problems before they arise. While others react, INFJs prepare. Their ability to hold the big picture in their minds, emotionally, spiritually, and practically, makes them capable of steering people and projects with clarity and long-term vision. They are the architects of deeper change, not because they crave control, but because their insight demands it. Their empathy gives them another advantage. Unlike traditional leaders who sometimes sacrifice the emotional well-being of individuals for results, INFJs feel the impact of their decisions on a soul-deep level. They lead with the whole human in mind. They want harmony, not at the cost of truth, but through truth. They understand the human condition, the mess, the beauty, the fear, the potential. They can hold another person's emotions with care, often mirroring it without being overwhelmed. This makes them deeply trusted by those they work with, not just as leaders, but as guides. So why, with all these powerful traits, wisdom, emotional depth, future vision, integrity, inner authority, do INFJs so often refuse to lead in the conventional sense? Because they don't want power. They want purpose. For an INFJ, leadership only matters if it serves something bigger than ego. They are not interested in climbing ladders for status or being followed for attention. The idea of people blindly following them is uncomfortable, sometimes even repulsive, because it threatens their deepest value, authenticity. They believe that everyone has a voice, a light, a truth, and they don't want to lead over people. They want to walk with them. Hierarchies often feel unnatural to INFJs. They would rather empower others than place themselves above. They also understand the weight of leadership, not just its power, but its responsibility. INFJs feel the emotional toll of carrying others. They anticipate the invisible pressure, the sacrifices, the public scrutiny, the energy it requires. While others romanticize being in charge, INFJs see the reality behind it. And unless they are deeply aligned with the mission, unless the cause speaks directly to their soul, they will walk away. No matter the fame, no matter the recognition, no matter the reward. There's also the matter of their sensitivity. INFJs process the world through a highly refined emotional and intuitive filter. They pick up on tensions most people overlook. They absorb the emotional atmosphere of a room. In leadership roles, this can become overwhelming. They may take criticism more personally. They may feel the weight of every team member's unmet needs. They may struggle with the energy drain that comes from constant social and emotional interaction. And because they value peace, both internal and external, they sometimes choose solitude over leadership simply to preserve their sanity. But make no mistake, INFJs do lead. They just do it on their own terms. You'll find INFJ leaders in unconventional spaces. The counselor who changes lives in a private office. The writer whose words start a quiet revolution. The spiritual teacher who uplifts without fame. The nonprofit founder who refuses to let their face be the brand. The healer. The strategist. The quiet rebel with a long-term plan. Their leadership may not come with fanfare, but its impact is undeniable. They are the ones who influence the influencers, who help the loud find their message, who steady the boat when everyone else is screaming at the storm. What makes their leadership stand above the rest is not just its depth, but its integrity. INFJs are incorruptible in ways many aren't. They are slow to trust, but once they believe in a cause, they give their whole selves to it. They don't lead to be worshipped. They lead because they see a better way. And when they do step into leadership, people often follow not out of obligation, but out of inspiration. So yes, INFJs are born leaders, but they're also born guardians. Guardians of truth, of depth, of authenticity, of humanity itself. And it is precisely because they do not need to lead that they are the most trustworthy when they finally do. INFJs do not step into power unless they have fully assessed its weight. They ask questions others don't. What will this cost my peace? Will I be asked to compromise my values? Will I be expected to play a role rather than live in truth? INFJs don't just calculate the cost of leadership on paper. They feel it in their soul. And unless the answer is deeply aligned with something higher than status or image, they will gracefully decline the throne. In every system, in every organization, in every community that is suffering from shallow leadership, that you'll often find an INFJ working behind the scenes, trying to rebuild it from within. They will write the strategy, no one knows how to communicate. And they will do all of this without needing the credit. Because to them, the impact matters more than the visibility. An INFJ's vision isn't limited to business metrics or group performance. Their vision is deeply human. They lead people, not just processes. They see not only what's happening right now, but where things are going emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. They often carry within them a subtle ache, the ache of all the potential they see going unused in people who are misled, mistreated, or unseen. That ache drives them, but it also drains them. So unless they have the space and autonomy to lead from the heart, they would rather remain in the background than risk leading from a place of disconnection. What INFJs resist is performative leadership, the kind that requires appearances over authenticity, the kind that uses charisma to manipulate, the kind that sacrifices people for results. INFJs know that leadership comes with a dangerous temptation, the temptation to become what the world wants you to be. And INFJs simply won't go there. Their integrity will not let them. They would rather lose opportunities than lose themselves. In almost every room, every system, every movement, someone will eventually turn to the INFJ. When things get out of hand, when trust is lost, when people are hurting, when no one knows what to do, that's when eyes turn toward the one who's been watching all along, quietly listening, patiently analyzing, the one who doesn't want to lead, but always knows the way forward. That's the INFJ. They've already mapped out 10 different paths. They've considered the emotional impact on everyone involved. They've imagined how things will unfold years from now. And yet they were silent. Not because they didn't care, but because they did. They were waiting for the right time. Waiting for truth to rise. Waiting to be asked, not because they crave power, but because they know leadership without consent is just control. And when the INFJ finally does speak, when they finally step forward, what they offer is not a command. It is a compass. What makes the INFJ's refusal to lead in conventional ways so compelling is that it's not rooted in passivity. It's rooted in power. Quiet power. The kind that doesn't need a posture. The kind that doesn't crave validation. The kind that doesn't move for applause, but moves when something in the soul says, now is the time. INFJs are acutely aware of the illusions that come with leadership as it's often portrayed. The false sense of control, the addiction to being seen, the subtle slide into ego-driven decisions disguised as influence. And because they see those traps so clearly, they avoid them, not out of fear, but out of principle. In classrooms, they're the student everyone quietly admires, the one who speaks up not to dominate, but to offer insight no one else thought of. In families, they're the emotional backbone, sensing and healing wounds that others don't know how to name. In friendships, they're the counselor, the anchor, the one who holds everyone together when life becomes too much. Even online, through their writing or their quiet content, INFJs create spaces that feel like home, not because they're trying to build a brand, but because they know someone out there needs to feel less alone. You see, INFJs don't lead with their voice alone. They lead with their being, with how they show up, with how they listen, with how they carry pain, compassion, and vision in the same breath. When they finally take charge, when they step forward not for themselves, but for the greater good, something shifts, not just in the space they lead, but in the people around them. The air becomes calmer. The intention becomes clearer. The mission becomes soulful again. That is INFJ leadership. It is not about hierarchy. It is not about being followed. It is about returning people to themselves. INFJs lead not by giving people answers, but by helping them hear the answers that already live inside. They ask the hard questions. They challenge you, not by tearing you down, but by believing you can be more. They don't control people. They call them higher. INFJs don't need to be in charge to take responsibility. They'll often be the first to arrive and the last to leave, doing the invisible labor that keeps things functioning, all while quietly avoiding recognition. It's not that they don't want to be appreciated. It's just that they don't want their worth to be reduced to applause. They would rather be respected for their integrity than celebrated for their position. And the world doesn't always understand this. It misunderstands their humility as weakness. It confuses their introspection with indecision. It labels them quiet when what they really are is watchful. But the few who do understand, the ones who see the quiet gears turning behind those thoughtful eyes, know that INFJs are the kind of leaders who won't just tell you what to do. They'll walk beside you as you do it. They'll remind you who you are. They'll help you build something that lasts. That's why their absence is always felt. Even when they've stepped back, the clarity they brought, the questions they asked, the calm they carried, it lingers. It lives in the structure. It breathes through the values. It echoes in the choices others now make because of what the INFJ showed them. Even when INFJs appear to withdraw from leadership, they are often guiding with more impact than those wearing the crown. Their strength lies not in overt commands, but in quiet redirection. A shift in energy, a carefully chosen word, a gaze that says, I see more than you're saying. They lead through intuition, not imposition. Influence, not intimidation. Their very nature is proof that real leadership doesn't require dominance. It requires depth. In many cases, INFJs don't turn down leadership because they feel unworthy. They turn it down because they see too clearly. They sense the ego traps waiting on the path. They see how the world rewards volume over value, performance over presence, charisma over character. And while other types may adapt to that system, INFJs resist it instinctively. To lead inauthentically is a betrayal of their soul. And to INFJs, there is no worse fate than becoming what you hate. INFJs are often the leaders people turn to in crisis, even if they weren't officially in charge. When everything falls apart, the world suddenly remembers that depth matters. Vision matters. Heart matters. They may hesitate, but they will step forward. Not because they want a role, but because the mission calls them. Because people need something real, something sacred, something sustainable. And when they lead from that space, they lead with grace that most leaders will never understand. They will teach you that leadership is not found in how many follow you, but in how deeply others find themselves through your guidance. They will remind you that leadership isn't about climbing ladders. It's about building bridges. They will show you that strength isn't loud and clarity doesn't need to shout. So if you ever find yourself around an INFJ who doesn't want to lead, look again. They already are, in ways you can't measure with charts, but can feel in your chest, in the way people breathe easier around them, in the way their words live in others long after they've left the room, in the way they spark revolutions that look, from the outside, like a conversation, or a glance, or a single well-timed pause. There is a sacred patience to the INFJ soul. They do not rush to claim power because they understand the slow burn of influence. They lead like roots, not storms, unseen yet unshakable. While others battle for visibility, the INFJ is underground, weaving systems of healing, insight, and emotional wisdom that hold up the structure without demanding the spotlight. They trust the timing of things. They trust the truth of things. And when they lead, it is with the weight of inner knowing, not outer pressure. This patience often leads others to underestimate them. In a world addicted to charisma and dominance, The INFJ's calm presence can be misread as passivity. But what people don't see is the ocean of thought, emotion, and insight moving beneath the surface. INFJs are rarely reactive. They are reflective. They take their time not because they are unsure, but because they care. INFJs are proof that you don't need a shout to be heard, you don't need a podium to lead, and you don't need applause to make history. You just need to be deeply, unapologetically, inwardly aligned. And from that place of integrity, real leadership is inevitable.